I'm Carey Spencer, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carey Spencer, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. This is such a fun, a little different episode here. We've got Spencer Lott, who actor, director, but all this comes through puppeteering, and we're going to talk a lot about that. This is so much fun. You will know a lot of his work. Spencer, how are you?
I'm doing great, Carey. How you doing, sir?
I am thrilled. You know, we were laughing. We were just talking right before we started all this, and went, "My gosh, we need to be recording this." We have a lot in common.
We do
through this industry.
It's a small world, especially in children's entertainment, right? It's a small world.
It really is.
Yeah.
And there's so many places I want to go, but I want to start off with children's entertainment means the world to me. And I didn't know when I got in. I had no idea. I was looking for a job. I've mentioned this many times in this show, and it changed my life. I mean, it absolutely changed my life. What has children's entertainment meant to you?
I mean, for me, it gave me a path, right? I grew up a kid in Kansas, and the only thing that I was allowed to watch growing up was PBS. And so I got Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, Shining Time, all of these classic shows, right? They were like such a huge inspiration for me. And my introduction to puppetry and theater and art and acting and special effects in Hollywood, you know, all these things. And I didn't set, like you, I didn't set out to become, to make a living in this field necessarily. It was definitely opened the door for me, but now almost everything leads back to making like high quality content for young people, right? Either film, TV, a lot of the live theater work I do in New York is also geared for young people and their families. So it's just, I think there's, I don't know what it's, an ethos, or there's something about it that you seem to be drawn in. It seems to choose you and pull you in to make this kind of material, or to be passionate about this kind of material. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting you say that, because I think it really is true. I was kind of blown away very quickly, because all of a sudden I realized there's a responsibility to this, as I mentioned a lot on this show. The fans of this work are passionate, and you can actually affect and change people's lives.
We see that at Sesame Street, right, all the time. It matters, and the audience is open and engaged, vulnerable, excited. You know, the audience is listening, and so we take that responsibility. Huge. It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah. And I've always said this, and this is something I know you can relate to, that, you know, Sesame Street or other things you've done, you can't be tired that day. You can't be sad. You can't be any of those things. You have to become that character. It's that important. And they didn't come to see Spencer, or in my case, they didn't come to see Carey. They came for that character that they know so well. What is it like for you to get ready when, let's say Sesame Street, for example, and you're getting ready to do a take? How do you get into that character and commit like that?
So this is a great, this is a kind of an actor's challenge, right? To show up, and you've already slogged an hour on the subway to get to the studio, and all these other variables, dynamics of the set. But yeah, it's our job to tuck that all away and to just channel. Really, it's this like childlike fill in the blank. It's this energy, this wonder, this curiosity, all the things that make our characters tick. We have to be able to hone right in on it. The amazing thing is that the group of Muppeteers on the show are the best in the world. They're phenomenal. They can sing, they can act, they can improvise. And they're doing it all, above their heads with puppets. And so when you're getting to riff with a character, with Grover, with Elmo, with Rosita, who's been alive and around on the show for 20, 30, 40 years, that helps, because they are grounded. Those performers are so good and they're so consistent and so steady that helps bring, those of us like me who are new, that helps bring us up to really like, oh yeah, we have to be as consistent as Grover, right? We have to find whatever those parts of the character are. But it's a challenge, especially coming back after lunch. If we've got lasagna at lunch and you got to come back in, from your break and pop into this like, little kid wonder, it's a great challenge. It's a real job, but it's our job to play. It's our job to like be the representatives and the icons for those characters and those archetypes. So you figure it out.
I always avoided the lasagna for that reason.
I know, right? It's not your first rodeo, I'm sure.
Yeah, I always avoided those heavy meals. I was very fortunate to get to work with the great Carol Spinney. Early days, Barney and Big Bird did a thing together, and I was blown away. He was a hero of mine as a kid.
Yeah.
Watching that show, and then boy did he not disappoint. I mean, he was just one of the nicest people, and his work level was incredible. It was incredible. What is it like for you working on a show where you've had people like that? I mean, that show has had legends.
Yeah.
In this industry.
Yeah, I mean that's that legacy is everywhere, right? It's in the green room, in the photographs of all the cast over the decades. It's in the little notes or the drawings that Carol would make and leave in the Muppet box where they keep the puppets on the set. It fills every inch of that place, and so. And it's so rare to have a 52-year legacy. And so the people who have been there for decades, and they've seen everything, and they've changed as the show continues to evolve. And so as a newer performer, it's just my job to soak it in and to carry that. There's a joke on set that, if we blow a take or something, someone will say, oh, well, there, we destroyed the legacy. There it goes. That we take it very seriously, and we want to make people like Carol, Richard Hunt, Jerry Nelson, Frank and Jim, and all these icons. We want to do them proud. They're huge artistic shoes to stand in. And someone like Carol or Jerry Nelson, like decent human beings, like wonderful, and would write back to your fan letter by hand with an illustrated cartoon of Big Bird. Their impact is great, and we feel it on the show, and we do our best to live up to it and to continue it as we can.
Just amazing. He gave me one of those too, and it was amazing. I'm going in as a colleague, and all of a sudden it's you automatically become this fan, as we say, fanboy. Yeah. And just as nice as he can be. Yeah. But before I go to, because we're going to run off to the races here, I do want to get back a little bit, and I want to talk about how you got into puppetry. Is this something as a kid that you just were fascinated, or how did this all come about?
Yeah, I latched onto it early. So I've got a kindergarten paper that says, it's got a little green blob that's supposed to be Kermit, and it says, I want to be the next Jim Henson. And the teacher wrote, oh, well, Jim Henson was a very creative person, and maybe you can do that one day. I've had amazing teachers and parents and support that have allowed me and supported and fostered my growth as an artist. So I grabbed it early, Muppets, Sesame, all those things. And then started building my own puppets, and then started my own company when I was a teenager, and started doing touring shows to libraries and churches and Boy Scouts and things like that. And it just kind of went from there. So I've always had the puppet bug. And I'm not, the nice thing about it is that it's allowed me to explore so many different types of art and artistry. Through puppetry, I get to direct, I get to write, I get to perform, I get to build. It kind of, every time I feel burnt out, I can lean into a different aspect of the art form, and that keeps me going and developing in a new way. So it's been really good to me.
Was it, I already know the answer to this question I'm asking. I know how difficult this is, right? I mean, how many kids want to be a puppeteer and weren't able to get there? And the thing that I find, is what I love about doing this show, and I find talking to people, is they just didn't stop. No didn't matter. They just kept pushing, and is that kind of what happened for you? You just because you write something like, I want to. Well, yeah. How many people want to be the next Jim Henson? But there's only one Jim Henson. And how do you go to making that become reality?
The only way I can answer is that it's that magic combination of support on one hand, and then just blind faith, stupidity, naivety. The failure wasn't really an option. I'm very privileged, right? I came from like a middle-class family who was able to support it, and I was able to help pay for school and things. And so
Right.
there were ways, some of the other obstacles that some other people might face, I haven't had to. And so I'm very aware of that and very thankful for it. But yeah, you just keep going. It's blind faith. And I'm sure you understand, this is like, you work so hard so that you can get lucky, right? You put in all this time and all this sweat so that you're in the position to then get lucky later. And it's a journey, right? It's an ongoing, and depending on the day, especially in like pandemic world that we're in right now, depending on the day, I waffle back and forth just like anyone else on, am I having the impact that I want to have? Am I making strong artistic choices? Am I, all these things. So it's a journey for sure, but it's doable. I'm a kid from Kansas, and I found my way into, I get to play with my mentors. I get to play with my heroes. I get to be a part of this legacy. It's not lost on me. It's incredible.
It's I feel that way too. Plano, Texas.
Yeah.
You'd be told that wasn't possible. And we're going to talk here in a little bit too about some of these legends, including from Mr. Rogers. We had David Newell on here, Mr. McFeely, and of course, from Pittsburgh. So you've seen a lot of this that's possible. And I think what you've just said is so important, that failure just wasn't an option. Because if you think going into this industry that you're not going to be told no and you're going to be told yes every time, you come to the wrong business. And one thing I really try to get on this show is that that's not personal, right? It could be they were looking for this or that. It has nothing to mean that you don't have the talent.
Now, I love that, Carey. That's such a good lesson, right? Is that I am who I am. I'm 5'10". I'm bald. I have this squeaky voice, and some jobs I'm perfect. Some jobs that is exactly what they need. Other jobs, I'm not what they need, but it doesn't have to do with me. All I can do is double down on me, and treat people with integrity, and be lovely, and be consistent, and good, and not worry about the rest. But that's hard. It takes a lot of practice not to take it personally. You're so right.
Absolutely does. And don't let anyone think that when I was younger, I didn't have my moments of disappointment and all of those things, but I had the same mentality, which was, well, you just keep going. You just keep going. Let's talk about, before we get into all these things you've done, how hard it is to be a puppeteer. Because we've had some puppeteers on here. We had John Tartaglio on,
yes,
who's incredible, and I did it from the body costume, but holding a puppet over your head and not really seeing what you're doing, and voicing and all of those things you're doing. I mean, there's a real art to it. Talk about that and how your beginnings of being a puppeteer and where you've developed that career.
Yeah. So I started doing stage puppetry, doing my own shows, touring around and building my own puppets. But the goal was always to see if I could get into television. I didn't know what that meant or how to do that. I went to the ONeill puppetry conference Waterford, Connecticut, Eugene ONeill Puppetry Center. It's a national conference run by Pam Marciero, the legend from Sesame Street. And my very first year, I was 17, and the director of this play that we're going to workshop was Martin Robinson, who plays Snuffleupagus and Telly Monster on Sesame Street. And so after the first day, we were rehearsing this play as the stage play, and I knew I'd been practicing. I knew how to lip sync and focus on things. And Marty came up and said, "Oh, you're pretty good, kid from Kansas. What's your deal? How are you on a monitor?" And I said, "What's a monitor?" And he said, "Oh, no." He goes, "Do you want to do television puppetry?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm here. Absolutely." He goes, "Then you have to learn how to use a monitor." And so, I don't know how I never connected this. I'd read so many books and seen so many behind the scenes specials and things, and they were always looking at a monitor, the puppeteers were, but it never connected that was a skill that I'd have to develop. Or I just thought it was like a mirror, right? And I didn't recognize that the way that Jim Henson, that they developed the style of puppetry with puppeteers was that the monitor would be straight scan, so the image is flipped. It's truly what people are going to see on their screens at home. And so when you move the puppet right in space, it goes left on camera. And so it takes you basically have to start from scratch. You have to start over, and everything you have to throw away and figure out just how to line up and how to focus and how to walk and interframe. And you're also collapsing 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions when you go into the frame. And so that whole process took, I'm still working on it. It took a decade. Marty kicked me off, and then I've been, I go to trainings and workshops, and I practice. When I first learned, I went home and set up a camera and a television in my basement and practiced every day for a year, just lip syncing to the Muppet movie and to songs, and just like figuring out how this thing works. So there's like the technical aspect, which takes a long time. It's deceptively difficult. If you've ever like tried to shave in a mirror or something, it's like backwards. And then there's the acting part, right? And then there's the support of you have to support the scene, support the text, support your collaborators. It's a really very demanding. I think you wouldn't know how hard it is. The greats do it with such ease, but when you try it yourself, it can really mess with your head. So it's taken me, and I'm still picking up tricks. I'm still growing and developing. My eye is much better than my skill still. So I'm still logging my hours to become a better TV puppeteer. But yeah, and then when, as if the monitor and the acting is not enough, you're stuffed in a sofa, or you're stuffed, or you're laying on the floor or under a table, or it's never very glamorous. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said, I think people think of the technical aspect of that, but being able to actually bring it to life, the acting of that is really something special, because and I went through this with Barney. I mean, you don't have facial reaction. There's a lot of things you don't have.
Yeah, it's a static figure, right? You have to figure it out. Yeah.
Right.
Did you have a monitor, Carey? Did you have a monitor in the costume?
Did not. We did not, and I was surprised when Carol did.
Yeah.
When I saw Carol, I was like, oh, yeah. We didn't have. Well, we talked about. We were from Texas, and we've talked about it on this show, that originally they built the costume thinking the voice would also get in there, and that didn't work, and so we ended up what we call Dino Sync. Yeah. Having it separate. And so, but see, none of us were trained costume performers. I mean, we had some skill, but
sure.
So, the job was to bring it to life. So that's what we did. Like, I didn't say, well, I need a monitor, I can't do this, or things like that. Right. You just go, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But doing the exact same thing you did, practicing, and you're just thinking constantly, and how can I do this? And what can and it never stops.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So let's talk some more about Sesame Street, because it's such a fascinating, I grew up with it, and now here it's still going the way it's going. What was it like for you to get on that set for the first time?
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's overwhelming. It still is overwhelming, still when I walk on and there's the 1, 2, 3 steps, there's Hooper Store, there's still these pinch me moments where it's hard to believe. It's this really, like I said before, it's this legacy, it's this tradition, and there've been so many artists and celebrities and educators and dancers and musicians, there's all this kind of DNA built into that place, and so to be a tiny part of it is amazing. I first got to put a Muppet on my hand in 2006. I got invited to a Sesame Puppeteer workshop. It was basically kind of like American Idol for puppeteers, and they say it's not an audition, but it was kind of an audition. And there's 50 of us from the United States and Canada, and we're there at Kaufman Astoria where we shoot Sesame, and they've got their table. I remember just walking in and there's just a table full of Muppets there. And as a kid from Kansas, being in the rooms, those are real Muppets. Those were built in the Jim Henson shop. What is happening? This is amazing. And so you could tell us that we're new, because as you basically go through the line and you go and you slate on camera and say, hey, my name is Spencer Lott and I'm from here, and but as soon as you put on that puppet, all of us nerd puppet builders, we're just like, okay, where are the seams? Okay, great. This is, what kind of foam with it? We're taking mental notes of these puppets as we're waiting in line to perform. So we did this puppeteer workshop where we would do singing and improvising, and they were just kind of checking out our chops and seeing where we were at. And I was super young. I actually skipped my first week of classes my freshman year of college to attend this workshop. It was my first time in New York. I got lost coming off the drive. I ended up in Jamaica coming home one day, and I was like a very typical Kansas kid. And then after every day they would make cuts, and so they would whittle it down. And so I made it to the Thursday of the 5-day workshop. I made it to the second to last day. And it was just, like we talked about before, it was, first of all, I got invited. I was in the room. I'd submitted a tape and been good enough to be picked. So that was a huge confidence booster. Be like, okay, I'm doing something right.
Right.
And then by the end of the week, there were so many new skills and so many new things, like, oh, I need to work on this. I need to work on this. I need to work on this. And so it was, to me, it wasn't at all, some people when they got cut were super deflated and depressed, which is totally understandable, but I was exhilarated. I saw it as a challenge. Oh yeah, okay, great. If I'm already in the room, then I can build up these other skills. I can work on these other things. And so I got to tour the set. That was the first time I got to walk around the set and poke my head into Oscar's trash can and feel Big Bird's nest, and have this tactile response to all of the things that I grew up watching. And then it still happens. It's still, they pull out Super Grover, and we're like, that's Super Grover, and then you're in the scene and you forget about it. Or every time Snuffleupagus comes out on set, everyone freaks out, no matter how long you've been at the show. It's so much fun. It's so exciting. So yeah, it's a cool place. It's a magical place.
Yeah, obviously I got asked a lot, about Sesame Street all the years I was doing Barney and the Connections and things of that nature. And it was pretty special getting to meet several people from there and work with them. It's such a cool thing. I want to talk a little bit about the building these puppets.
Yeah.
In a lot of different areas, because I'm curious, does that help you? Puppeteer, something that you built and you can build it the way you want it, or compared to, goodness gracious, you're doing one of the Muppets there's pressure there, right? Because you didn't build it, but you know, who are you going to go complain to about this? You know, so
Yeah.
I'm really curious about both sides of that.
I find for me, building has been hugely helpful, because even when you're dealing with a puppet from the Henson shop, they are the best builders in the world. They're incredible puppet builders. They've been doing it for decades. You have a shared vocabulary, right? So even though I'm not building, I didn't build my, the character Sam,
Right.
like Rusin built him, like one of the original Muppet builders. But I can talk to Raleigh about, what is this grip and thumb? Okay, yeah, this is gasket rubber. Can we? What else do we have? And then there's a ton of like deference. They
Right.
know how these puppets are built, and they're like, the origin story of these characters, starts with the design and then goes to the shop. So by the time I was involved, this character already had its own life. So it's my job to respect where it's come from and to take care of it and nurture it. But for as far as that shared vocabulary, and especially on set, when they're like, okay, Sam has to carry 2 books and then put them on the table, then I'm having a conversation with the puppet wranglers who were there, how I want the books rotted, how we're going to switch it out. Because I mean, basically every shot, and you would know this, right? Every shot with puppets is basically a special effects shot.
Right.
And so having that shared vocabulary about where to put the arm rod, where to switch to a live hand, those kind of things, I find it hugely helpful. And then also the reality of being in the business, right, is that we're not shooting every day.
Right.
Especially not me. So being able to build, having the building skill set is it's just another way to be employed. And to work for shops all over town, to build my own stuff for gigs. So I found it's a great way to diversify my income, but still be, in the world.
Right. Are those the fun parts for you? You made me smile when you're talking about carrying books and things. Those were always fun to me. Getting to do the stunts, whatever, They would ask Barney if he could roller skate or jump rope. And I was like, absolutely, I can.
Let's do it. You better believe it. Puppeteer challenge. We're all on set. It's always Puppeteer challenge. What can we do? That's
exactly how I feel. I love that stuff. So for you, it was awesome.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's the stakes are higher instantly, right? What was going to be a simple thing, now another part of your brain engages. And especially being new and being surrounded by all these people who are like, come on, Lott, you got to get it right the first time,
Right.
So it's like, okay, here we go. I'm with you. I love that, the challenge. And then anything that's practical. I'm just a huge fan of puppetry and costumes and practical effects in general. So anytime we can do it in camera, like real tactile,
right,
that's the best.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because the producers would put their head down on the desk when they'd ask me, can you do this? I'm like, yes. He's like, oh. Of course he said yes. All right, we can do that. The pressure you're talking about is that, especially Barney had all the kids on the set, right? So we can only shoot so long. There's all kinds of laws and things.
Of course.
Do. So you say, hey, I can jump rope or something like that. Well, you can't take half the day to pull that off.
You gotta figure it out quickly. That's
right.
It's true. It's true on our set. We shoot. When we do those street stories, we'll typically shoot an episode a day. And so there's a matter of seconds for you to figure out the best way to do it. I totally feel you. Yeah.
So we got to talk about the movie that you did last year. One of the reasons I'm smiling so much. So A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Mr. Rogers movie with Tom Hanks. You were a puppeteer and the lead puppeteer and helped build these puppets as well.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Carey, it was another dream job, right? I grew up watching Mr. Rogers and was definitely affected by the tone and the care and the artistry of that show. And then we have a personal connection. Fred Rogers was my wife's godfather.
Oh wow!
And was friends with her parents, with my in-laws.
Wow!
And so Fred Rogers was already in the air at the house. We've, we've got some signed pictures and gifts and things from him. And so we were already like true believers in Fred. And so, yeah, so when this opportunity came around to build these puppets, it was just a no-brainer. And it was a huge challenge, like an artistic challenge, to try and replicate these puppets. There weren't any patterns. There were very few references, and the puppets were already, they'd already been behind glass for 20 years, and so it was an amazing challenge.
Did you get to see them?
So the production was incredible, and so we got to go out to the I'm gonna say it wrong, but it was the Fred Rogers Center, basically, at St. Vincent College. There's an archive with all of his things. They've got a beautiful museum there. And so they closed down the museum for us for a day. Wow. And the archivist took out the glass from the case. And then we got to handle the puppet. So I got to try on.
Oh my gosh.
The Tiger, King Friday, X the Owl. I got to try them on, and then me and my team were frantically. We had one day to do it, so we were frantically taking notes and matching colors and looking at textures and trying to pattern off of the puppets, and while not destroying the American television legacy. Right. So it was such a fun challenge. It was very. It was emotional and in the best way. It was really lovely. It was a dream.
I don't even know where to start on that subject, because that's incredible. What that show meant to so many people and continues to mean, and those puppets are very basic.
Yeah. They're deceptively basic, right? They're just those glove puppets. There's no moving features. There's no big fancy things, but they're so specific, and they've been in hundreds and hundreds of hours of television. And so we needed to get it right, and we weren't going to be able to match everything exactly, but we wanted to get at least the spirit of every character right. And that throughout the production, Mariel Heller, the director, was outstanding, and every department was focused on the same goal. The sets that they recreated were to the point where it's like there was like chewing gum and graffiti on the back of the sets, and they're like, well, it was in some of the pictures. That's the way it was in 1994, so that's what we made here. Like the amount of care in the miniatures, the entire miniatures crew, like every part of that film, it was a love letter to Fred and to that show, and people really put their hearts and souls into that work. So that it permeated throughout the entire production.
What was it like bringing those characters to life?
It was incredible. It was incredible. I remember these moments just standing in the tree, X the Owl's tree. And I've got X the Owl on my arm, and I'm waiting for my cue to pop out. And my cue is Trolley. Trolley's going by, and Trolley's going to ring the bell. Ding, ding. And then I'm going to pop out X the Owl. And it's just like, what is happening? How did I find myself inside this tree with X the Owl on my hand? I was geeking out. My glasses were just fogged up the entire time, right? I was just in nerd heaven. It was incredible. And then people like David Newell would stop by the set.
Let's talk about David. We were talking about that earlier. I want to talk about David Newell, because I had the opportunity to meet him on a Barney event 25 years ago, and then we've had him on Purple Roads, and it's Mr. McFeely. I mean, it's incredible. And what we started this show talking about, the responsibility and understanding it, I don't know there's anyone that really, and obviously Fred Rogers was the same way. What was it like for you meeting David the first time?
Oh, it was magical. And he was just so kind and open. And I was over working on the puppets or something. And he came over and just launched and was like, I was the props master for many years, and I took care of those puppets, and we stuffed those puppets in bags and kept them in the file cabinet. And he told me the story, like one time, I believe if the story is correct, they they like double booked Daniel Tiger for something on accident. And so they needed to put, David had taken him to the airport, but then he needed to be back for a photo shoot or something. And so they put him in a cab, they put Daniel Tiger, the puppet, in a cab and sent him across town for this photo shoot. Like he just had nothing but gracious things to say. He was so impressed with the work and was so flattered and so excited by what we'd done to try and recreate like every inch of those puppets. And he was so generous with his time and gracious, and the stories he told. And he was, you know, I think you're absolutely right. He takes it seriously, and he has been able to live this life where he means so much to so many people. And was on both sides of the camera, right? Was kind of instrumental to how the show was made. And yeah.
Well, and he did PR for Fred Rogers as well. If a lot of people don't know that. Yeah. Which is fascinating, all the levels that he did.
From what I learned there, I mean, Fred had a small nucleus, a small team, and they did everything. They were producers. They were helping him create the show, and this kind of small loyal group grew with him and grew with the show. And now a number of them still work for the Fred Rogers Company or Fred Rogers Productions, and they're still involved in his legacy. And so it was pretty incredible to get to meet some of them and be a part of that piece.
Well, you know, we're talking all about this, and we haven't mentioned Tom Hanks, by the way, was in this movie, and an amazing performance that he did in this movie, because I, with probably like a lot of people, were very skeptical of this, and to the point where I wasn't sure I wanted to go see this. And I love Tom Hanks. I think he's an amazing actor. But Fred Rogers was, you know, he was so unbelievable. You know, as a kid, I felt he was talking to me. And so to see this, and it could have been a bad parody. I mean, so what Tom Hanks was incredible. What was it like working with him?
I mean, the reason he is Tom Hanks is for, you know, it's for a reason, right?
Sure.
He's very smart. He's very kind. He's very focused, and he's very good at what he does. He's a professional actor. I met him at a camera test for fitting. We're going to make sure that all the puppets we're going to fit him in to give him a rehearsal puppet for Daniel Tiger. And I've got my little puppet set up on the table, and I know that any minute Tom Hanks is going to walk through the door, and boom, the door busts open, and he comes striding in, and he goes, "Hi, I'm Tom." And it's just like, what is happening? Oh my God! Hi, I don't remember my name, but I'm happy to meet you. And we jumped right in, and he grabbed the puppet and tried to, try it out. We looked at some of the things in the script, but he was way more interested in me and my notebook. He said, where'd you get this notebook? You know, your hand, I love your handwriting. You know, he was much more interested in me as a person and as an artist. He's very smart. We talked about this Fred Rogers style of puppetry and the stillness and all that. And he's like, oh yeah. You know, like he was amazing. He was Tom Hanks, you know. And so he would, and he did a lot of his own puppetry in the film, right? Those moments where you see him puppeteering, that's really him. Usually when they punch into a close-up or something, he'd tag me in and I'd hop in there and do it for him. But that was really that beautiful slow tracking shot where he's in the clock doing the scene with Daniel Tiger.
Yeah. That's
him. He's really doing it. He's looking at the monitor. He's got that old school tube monitor there, and he's really doing it. So he's the real deal. He was lovely and smart, and he cared about the legacy, and he knew how much it meant to the people in Pittsburgh. We shot it there on location, and so he took it just as seriously as anyone else.
And what's that like? Are you giving him tips? Are you directing him? Are you helping him when it comes to puppeteering?
So I'm around, right? I was the puppet captain. So it's basically, you know, a coach, a consultant. So working with him and the director to just get whatever they needed. If he had a question or if he wasn't sure if something was reading, you know, I could offer advice or something like that. We finished one take, and Mari, the director, was like, you know, Tom, how'd that feel? Tom goes, well, Spencer's the only one who knows if it looks any good. If Spencer's happy, I'm happy. Let's move on. So it was always a dialogue. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Is there pressure on this? Do you just have to go, this is another puppetry job when you're doing something like that? Because can you just get overwhelmed when you start figuring, Tom Hanks and all of that?
Yeah, it's good to compartmentalize, right? I'm sure you've met and performed with many people on many stages, over the years, and I find it's healthy to not think about it.
Yeah.
To be like, this is my job. This is my scene partner. It's my job to help facilitate things and make things smooth and easy. And then, you freak out in your hotel room,
right.
or but that's, and luckily Sesame has helped train me to do that. We get to work with amazing artists all the time. And so, and you of course realize that they're human beings, and they want to nerd out with you the same way, or they're just like having a rough day, or they're reading a book, or, like they're just doing their job too. So luckily, I'm able to kind of, read the room and take those social cues and do my thing. But you can't think about it too much. You got to do the best work you can do on that day, and be prepared, know your stuff, and trust your instinct, trust your gut, and say, oh no, I can do this job, and I'll help figure out whatever we need to do. And because puppetry is such a niche thing, you often, even though I'm relatively young in my career, you find yourself becoming the expert, because there's not that many people around that they can refer to. So you learn how to advocate for yourself and for what you need pretty quickly. So those are skills that I'm always honing and developing.
It's funny you say that. You're bringing back all these memories. When I played Radio City Music Hall back in '94, I was brand new at this, and I was the second. There was 2 Barneys in that show, and I was the second one. I was also doing all of the meet and greets and things of that. So they sent me to go do this meet and greet, and here is John Travolta and Kelly Preston, and I'm hugging John Travolta.
No big deal,
right.
Carey. No big deal.
Right. I'm 23 years old, hugging John Travolta, who at that time and still to this day is,
I've heard of him.
Right. And I went to what you're talking about, where you started going, but really at this moment, he's a parent, and the kid, you're able to turn that and go,
exactly,
this is amazing. Like, I'm going to go freak out later, as you mentioned, at the hotel room, but oh my gosh, this child
in that
here.
moment, you're in service. Barney is hugging, right? You're in service of this idea, of this feeling. Yep. It's that kind of relationship where you're like this. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly.
And over the years happened a lot. And you start to even realize more kind of what you're saying is that they respect the skill that you have. And that probably took me a moment to realize that you're with these incredible actors or musicians or whatever, but they respect what you do. And it was, it takes a little time to understand that concept.
Now, I mean, that's one of the things that I love about puppetry, and especially working with Sesame or Muppets, is that and I think David Rudman, who plays Cookie Monster and Baby Bear, he describes it like being a superhero. I'm just this skinny little white guy in real life, but then, I'm here I am at Good Morning America doing this thing with Al Roker, and I get to be this hero puppet, and then puppet goes in the bag, and I walk out of the studio, and I get on the train, and I go home, and nobody bugs me. It's like this such an interesting dual life. But it's really healthy. It's really nice. It's fun to get to be backstage at the Tonight Show and working with Jimmy Fallon, or being at Radio City, or doing the Kennedy Center, all these things. But then like have a little family and not worry too much about all the other trappings and that stuff. So it's fun. It's kind of the best of both worlds, I think.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of that myself. And it's a really crazy thing.
Yeah.
Because you walk in, no one knows who you are.
Nobody knows who you are. This guy's from Texas? What's this guy from Texas doing
Right.
here?
Security's, they're asking you explain, and they're like, oh my gosh. And then, you go in another room, and then all of a sudden I'm gone, and here's this big purple dinosaur, and people are like, oh my,
Yep.
and then you're done, and you go to the street, you walk back to your hotel or whatever.
Total anonymity. Nobody
Right.
knew that you just played Radio City Music Hall. Yep.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. Or the Good Morning America, any of those things. It's a bizarre, crazy, unbelievable experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I want to know, I'm really curious, if we're talking about all of this, doing puppets for Sesame Street and doing puppets for Mr. Rogers, the different styles there.
Yeah. I mean, it's the tone, it's the construction of the puppet, it's the tone of the story, it's all those things. And luckily both puppets inform those choices, right? Muppets are often beautiful, brightly colored, big eyes. We play in these larger spaces. There's a lot of talking and singing and choreo, and the puppets are built for that, right? They are these kind of almost pop art versions of these characters, versus Mr. Rogers, which is these glove puppets. They're small, they're compact, they're layered. They're painted still, right? They don't have any moving features or mechs or anything. And so the puppet intrinsically impacts the performance, right? Immediately. But then the tenets of puppetry are the same, right? Stillness, focus, breath, like the things that make a Muppet come to life are similar to what make Daniel Tiger come to life. It's just that the parameters are a little bit different. And it's a dream to be able to have done both, right? It's a pretty rare opportunity. So it's actually turned me on. I love glove puppets now. I'm obsessed with glove puppets because they're so simple, right? And it's, at the end of the day, it's just this. A glove puppet holding anything human size is hilarious and charming. A glove puppet holding a human sized book is like, well, this is what puppetry is so magical. So I'm a big proponent of glove puppets now that I get to spend so much time in Fred Rogers' world.
So now you've talked about, because you've done puppets for kids, right? You've been out live events. What is that experience like for you?
I mean, one of the things I love about it is that they get to see the behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. For me, as a kid in Kansas who was so hungry for any kind of content, any kind of puppetry, special effects, Hollywood, television, to be there live and to say, hey, I'm the performer, but this is the puppet character, and this is how I make it talk. This is how it moves. These are the tools that I use to communicate. Like, I love sharing that behind the scenes thing, and then seeing that connection with the young person and their caregiver, because often the parent or the grandparent has also grown up on Sesame Street, and so they have their own emotional nostalgia and this emotional connection with whoever the character is, and so that's magical. I love being able to share that and to encourage people that that there are versions of this that are obtainable. This is a thing. You can this is an approachable art form that you can adapt to tell whatever kind of story you need to.
What kind of questions do they ask you?
That's a good question. I mean, sometimes the question is, do you do the voice? Like, right. And so that's there's always different puppeteers have different answers. Some puppeteers are infuriated by this, but yes, we do the word. If you see the character, that is the performer doing the voice, 99% of the time. Other questions. I mean, I'm having trouble coming up with any like specific ones. How do I find out more, or how do you do, or sometimes they'll ask, how did you get the puppet to smile?
Right.
And you'll say, this puppet's face is fixed.
Right.
This puppet's face is foam, but it's in the attitude and the acting and the breath. And that's you get the feeling of a smile. So sometimes they have questions about that. It's the magic of it all.
Yeah, it's really interesting talking about that. Is that difficult for you if you have a puppet that's always happy, and you
Mm.
and having to show the different emotions, or vice versa? You know, those ones that I'm thinking really about Mr. Rogers, there's not a whole lot of emotion there, but he made them be a lot of emotion there. I feel exactly what Daniel Tiger or any of them were with a puppet, that there's just not a whole lot there.
And then that's such a testament to him as a performer, right? And him as an
Mm-hmm.
actor and a storyteller. We feel it. We don't need a moving mouth. We don't need blinking eyes.
No.
We don't need digital tails. We don't need any of that. It's just that those small body language, those really, it's just a symbol. It's just an icon. So the smallest little thing, we want to believe. We want to see ourselves in Daniel. We want to see ourselves in King Friday. And so it just takes a gesture, a small gesture, an exhalation, a look. It's like those little tiny. It's like the tenets, if you're in animation at all, right? It's like those kind of very little specific parts of dance animation that make us go, oh, I know how Daniel Tiger is feeling in this moment. Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
So doing the puppet work that you've done, it's gotta help you with directing, directing other puppeteers, building these puppets for other people. How does all that work for you in all the different areas that you do when it comes to puppets?
I that's what keeps me, really engaged in the art form, is that one day I'm just a hired actor and I'm just puppeteering the left hand of fill in the blank, of Ernie for this one shoot, and then that's it. And then the next day I get to build, and the next day I get to direct. And it's what I love about that is that it gives me a better awareness of everyone else's job, right? So next time I'm on set at Sesame, I can be thinking, I just wrote a script that I'm pitching to a TV network. And so I know, the things that have already gone into this script, I'm aware of. So I'm not just going to throw it away after the first pass. I'm going to give it some respect. And I know some of the same. I just directed a shoot, and so I know that I had this challenge with eye lines, and I'm seeing this director has a way that they've already solved that. It just basically has given me a greater awareness of all the other components of a set or of a production, and how to utilize them, and then how to know my role, and know how I can solve a problem, and or how I can anticipate if there's going to be a problem, and then also work begets more work, right? So like for the film, I was just hired as the puppet builder, and then they were like, well, wait a minute, we're going to need puppeteers, aren't we? And I was like, well, I'm a SAG puppeteer. I'm available. And they're like, oh, great. Well, you know how the puppets were built, so you should do this job. I was like, great. And they're like, well, can you help us cast other puppeteers? We don't know how to cast puppeteers. Like, let's run a casting session. So, if you say yes, and you're lovely and you're honest about your skill set, but then also, but also can do your homework, then it just begets, and you can grow and grow and grow. So, I love.
It's so funny you say that, because that's what happened to me. I actually did birthday parties for Barney at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Just showing up. It was crazy. And that's what kept happening. Can you do this? Sure, I can. Can you dance? Sure, I can. And I went from doing the basic movements to, end up touring and that thing. And I think that's such an important part. There's a lot of people who watch this show that are interested in all of those things. And that's such a huge part, is jumping out. Be careful. Don't bite off more than you can chew, right?
Be honest, right?
Yeah, be honest.
But,
don't tell them you can do something you can't.
Yeah.
But, for my sake, I was not a great dancer, but my mom taught me how to dance. She was a professional dancer for 70-something years. So if you say yes, make sure you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what it's that curiosity, right? It's a little bit of shared vocabulary. It's the curiosity to say, oh, okay, I'm not a dancer, but I've seen I recognize what dancers do.
Right.
So maybe I can pepper that into this performance. Or, I'm not a piano player, but I can do a Muppet playing the piano really well, So yeah, Carey, I think that's crucial, right? It's being optimistic and saying, yes, I can do that thing. And then hustling to make it happen, doing your homework, asking your network, figuring out the vocabulary to actually follow through. That's so much of what being an artist is, really.
So what is the future in the professional world for Spencer Lott?
That's a great, we're in this moment of limbo right now, right? So it's such an interesting question. I'm always asking about impact. How can I use my very limited skill set to make a great impact? So I'm the associate artistic director of a company called Trusty Sidekick Theater Company in New York, and we create original work for young people and their families. And so now we've been figuring out how to adapt to a digital age and how to bring stories through audio and video to our audiences, which has been really fun. And then I just built some puppets for a new HBO pilot. So it's work for adults that's going to come out in this next year. And I'm writing some TV shows. I've got some concepts and some treatments for some new shows that I'm pitching around to some folks to see if I can make something myself. Because the dream is always straight, just like hiring your talented friends. It's all I want to do is get these talented people some work. So that's what I'm looking into.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being here, Spencer. I love talking Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and all of that. And I'm fascinated, and I don't think people understand. We did some things in common, but body costume work and puppeteer work, there's definitely some different aspects to it.
Yeah. The tenets are similar, right? Like focus and stillness and all that, and working on a set, working with young people. Right. Like there's a lot we have shared, but then yeah, there's a different set of movement and lip sync and characterization. There's like different there's different qualities to both types of performance. But sweaty and long hours on set. I know all those things. So shared humanity for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you again for coming on and talking shop.
Thanks so much, Carey. Thanks for having this podcast. Thanks for all these conversations. I've had a blast listening to some of my heroes that you've had on here. So keep making them. I'm very excited to listen to more.
Well, thank you. I had no idea when I was doing this. I just smile every week. I learn something new, and I see something new, and I hear something new, and I got to tell you, my heart is filled up every week talking to people that just absolutely love this as much as I love this, and the passion that you all do, and hearing your story and what you do, it just makes me smile.
Likewise. We need it right now. So this is a good thing.
Yes. And for everyone, you got to go check out Spencer's work. So make sure you go check out that movie. Obviously, always check out Sesame Street.
Yeah. Can I plug my website, Carey?
Of course.
MrLott.com, MisterLott. You can see various gigs I've done for various people, building and directing. And then I'm on Instagram too. Look me up, and let's make something. Let's do something.
Absolutely. And we'll have all those links as well. So we will send you to go see Mr. Lott.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Spencer.
Thank you, Carey. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Purple Roads. Remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your Purple Road. We'll see you next week.